the
environmental impact
and
sustainable development of
Newport South Wales. Have you ever wondered the unseen and inevitable results of industrial development? Whilst continuing your daily routine, have you ever stopped to appreciate the environment around you? While this may sound incredibly dull, it is our job as Team 7 to widen your view of the world. Through this 10-minute video, we hope to spread the environmental awareness of industrial development and sustainable practices in your city, Newport. With a population of around 145,000 people and a geographical area of 73.5 square miles, its economy was developed by the trading of three major materials, the first being iron and steel, followed by agri-bulks such as fertilizers, and eventually coal and mineral. As such, the video will focus on industries that produce or use those materials, which are namely the iron and steel works, the chemical works, and the coal-fired power station. Coal mining industry was not included as it is now within Newport. Sorry there, buddy.
iron and steel has proven to be an important commodity in Newport's history, with evidence going as far back as the Roman times. By the 17th century, Newport established itself as an important port for trade. The iron and steel industry in Newport, like most industries at the time, saw unprecedented growth during the Industrial Revolution, making Newport one of the largest cities in Wales. Today, iron and steel still constitutes a large portion of Newport's trade. In Newport's history, there have only been two coal-fired power stations. Although coal has been a major trade commodity in Newport, it wasn't until the 1940s when the first coal-fired power station was built. The power station was later closed in 1981 and was finally demolished in the year 2002. The second coal-fired power station in Newport was built in the 1960s and is still generating electricity today, albeit at a lower capacity. It is considered one of the cleanest coal-fired power stations in the UK, with state-of-the-art desulfurization equipment and low NOx burners. In addition, it uses secondary treated sewage water in its cooling system.
So even though industrial development benefits the economy, the inevitable outcome is the production of legacy waste, which arises from past industrial activity. But hold your horses.
What are legacy wastes? Legacy wastes are waste that persist for years after their release into the environment and can cause harm to human, animal, and environmental health. They can be roughly grouped into four categories: contained and/or stored waste, buried waste, contaminated soil and groundwater, and contaminated building materials and structures. Here we will focus on three particular legacy wastes: heavy metals, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and volatile organic compounds.
So coming to legacy pollution, heavy metal is now a global issue that we are facing so many years. Heavy metal covers so many chemicals such as CD and Hg. Here we will mainly focus on AS arsenic, which is the most serious one in terms of affecting our health. The principal source of arsenic include base metal works, especially iron and steel industry, and power plants that burns AS-rich coal. And arsenic has a few pathways to pollutant, which thus contains arsenic into air, and maybe some arsenic dissolved into water. It might enter into soil via deposition. It is most commonly ingested via groundwater and food consumption, and as it is toxic to organisms, including humans, and will reduce plants or crops growth by inhibiting phosphate uptake.
Polyaromatic hydrocarbons, PH, is a collective term for any hydrocarbons with a ring structure. They include a large variety such as pyrene, benzene and pyrene, naphthalene, and so on. Naturally, they are produced through volcanoes and forest fire, but the majority of the sources come from anthropogenic means, especially from partial combustion from iron and steel works, and coal burning. Once produced, they are released into the atmosphere and may eventually deposit into the soil or groundwater through raining. Once taken up by living organisms, they may damage the immune system, cause cancer, and can accumulate in animal and plant tissues traveling up the food chain.
Volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, are compounds that easily become vapors or gases. The main sources of these compounds come from the glue works, producing benzene, toluene, and arsenic. In addition to these, heavy metals and hydrogen sulfide are also produced. VOCs and heavy metals impact the environment as they can contaminate soils, and the percolation of water through the soils cause leaching of these contaminants into surface groundwater. This is important to note because benzene is a known carcinogen and toluene can cause liver and kidney damage in humans.
But are these really bad? Well, don't worry, industries often have mitigations to reduce their impact.
There are many ways that heavy metal accumulation in the environment can be remediated. The most effective is to combine physical, chemical, and biological approaches to remove heavy metals from contaminated soil, water, and sediments. Here, we will focus on 3 approaches that have been proven effective in remediating land contaminated by heavy metals.
Nanocomposites of copper iodide using polyvinyl alcohol were found to be more environmentally friendly, with minimum waste disposal, although being less efficient than physical chemical methods.
Another approach to remediation is the electrokinetic phytoremediation approach. During this process, 2 electrodes are placed vertically in the soil as illustrated in the image. An electric current is then passed through the soil which separates the organic and inorganic molecules, including toxic heavy metals. This helps plants to remove these metals by processes such as phytoextraction, phytoevaporation, and phytostabilization, which all remediate contaminated soil. Phytobial remediation is an approach which combines phytoremediation, which uses plants to uptake heavy metals, and bioremediation, which uses microbes to transform the heavy metals for easier remediation. An example of this process is shown in the diagram. Heavy metals can be transformed by microbes in the soils by a number of different processes, such as oxidation and reduction, immobilization and mobilization, solubilization, and toxicity reduction, among others. These processes make it easier for the plant to uptake the heavy metal and reduce metal-stressed soils.
For pH, there are several mitigations proposed which can be divided into the biological and chemical approach. The first being phytoremediation, which exploits fungi to take up and break down the pH. This is a cost-effective approach, but oftentimes the removal by fungi is never very efficient. As the enhanced version, washing, ozonation, bioremediation is often used. It works similarly to phytoremediation, except that the soil is washed and supplied with ozone to increase the efficiency of microorganisms to break down up to 90% of the pH. Lastly, the chemical approach of photocatalysis and photolysis. The soil was first leached and in the presence of sunlight reacts with an oxidant and a catalyst to break down also up to 90% of the pH. Even better, the whole process only takes 7 to 76 minutes. There are other ways of minimizing the impact of pH, but these are some of the possible mitigations proposed.
Civil engineering practices of mitigation have historically been practiced, with recent technological advancements becoming more affordable. The mitigation processes which are used very much depend on the type of VOC contamination and the soil. These can include bioremediation, soil vapor extraction, soil washing, and thermal treatment.
Newport City Council's local development plan has sustainable development at its core. Their planning system is underpinned by many local, national, and European directives and strategies to promote sustainability, including their own well-being for Future Generations Act 2015. Any local development planning must include a sustainability appraisal and strategic environmental assessment to ensure that all social, environmental, and economic issues are addressed and resolved during development. Due to growing investment in the area, brownfield sites are being increasingly considered for development. Thorough assessment of these sites and remediation of any contamination occurs before any development. Newport, as part of the UK, still has a way to go before meeting all the UN Sustainable Development Goals, but is continually making progress.
Newport has played a large part in the economic growth of the country, being one of the key exports in vital industrial and economic resources such as steel, coal, and fertilizers. As expected, the generation of these resources in an industrial setting results in many legacy contaminants appearing in the local environment, as industrial dumping is the easiest and most economic way to deal with waste. Every day, new techniques are found to remediate and deal with such waste, and as time goes on, these techniques become more sophisticated in that chemical, physical, and biological techniques are used in tandem to increase their efficiency. To conclude, all we need is one person to come forth and drive change towards the cleaner environment and a cleaner future. You could be that one. Thank you for watching.